I don't know when I became a product tool for my husband to make money from his own physical desires. The story began when I told Josiah, my husband, I'm not strong enough for you anymore. Then the horror happened. My husband gradually became a perverted sick person, and I was immersed in a desire for pleasure with no way out. I recall how his gaze flickered, neither in anger nor in sorrow, but rather in a state of bewilderment. That moment, right there in our bedroom, marked the inception of a blaze that neither of us could extinguish again. Josiah had just completed his task, and as was my custom, I found myself gazing at the ceiling, not in a state of fulfillment, but rather in a profound sense of void. It accumulates softly, much like the dust that settles in the forgotten corners of your mind. I stood there, anticipating the weight of guilt to engulf me, yet in that moment, I met his gaze unwaveringly and uttered the words that would alter the course of our lives forever. You fall short. He blinked, momentarily caught off guard. At one time. Twice. He slipped his boxers back on and settled onto the edge of the bed. He stood with his back to me. He remained silent. He remained composed. He merely stated, then I shall seek out someone who is. Greetings, my cherished community. I perceive your presence. I understand your feelings. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you, particularly those among you who continually return, offering your insights and igniting this channel with your passion and warmth. To all my new and returning viewers who have yet to subscribe, I invite you to click that button now. This is the sole fuel that energizes this realm. Each subscription, each comment, contributes to the tapestry of this expanding family. Share your reflections immediately following this captivating introduction. I am eager to know your thoughts on the recent events. Allow me to guide you further into the depths. We had shared 12 years of marriage. For 12 years, a serene and cozy existence unfolded, marked by an emotional detachment. Josiah embodied a certain reliability, settling bills ahead of time, marking Sundays for intimacy and bestowing gentle kisses upon my forehead rather than my lips. I made an effort. Heaven knows I made every effort. I acquired some new lingerie. I dispatched some provocative messages. I found myself engrossed in online tutorials on the art of rekindling the spark with my husband after 10 long years. Nothing seemed to yield results. I found myself ravenous, surrounded by an abundance of food that had lost its appeal. Thus, I uttered it. After one of his typical 3-minute sessions, he disengaged from me like a weary employee finishing their shift, rolled over and switched on ESPN. I gazed at his back and murmured, Josiah, you no longer suffice for me. Initially, he assumed I was referring to emotional needs, perhaps desiring additional dates or more affection. However, I clarified that my needs extended beyond that. I sought more in the bedroom and not merely in terms of variety. I craved intensity, power, dominance, an essence that was raw, reckless, and undeniably animalistic. He rose silently and made his way to the bathroom, leaving me with the impression that this was the end. Perhaps he would at last seek a divorce. Perhaps he might even decide to leave. Yet, Josiah envisioned something entirely different. 2 nights later, I entered our living room and beheld them there. Luke and Hugo, 2 imposing figures, sat on our couch with their legs spread wide, exuding an air of confidence that enveloped the room like a rich fragrance. Luke bore tribal tattoos that adorned his arms, his gaze deliberate and penetrating. Hugo adorned himself with a gold chain, his thick beard elegantly framing his sharp jawline. Josiah positioned himself alongside them and declared, "You desired more. These men are prepared to deliver." My knees buckled, not out of fear, but from a delicious thrill that coursed through me. The inaugural evening unfolded with Josiah stationed in the corner, arms folded, silent, merely observing. Luke was the first to lay his hands upon me, and they were larger than those of any man I had ever encountered. He lifted me with ease, as if I were a feather, and kissed me as though my very breath depended on it. Hugo arrived shortly after, his fingers gliding over my body with a slow, intentional desire. The 3 of us flowed like flames, surging and colliding in a relentless rhythm. I cried out, whimpered, pleaded, actions foreign to my interactions with Josiah. The most astonishing aspect was his unwavering gaze, his expression a mystery, his dark eyes locked onto every sound that escaped my lips, sounds that had nothing to do with him. As the final moments faded away, I found myself sprawled on the carpet, soaked in perspiration, my legs quaking beneath me. Luke offered me a glass of water, while Hugo pressed his lips against my inner thigh and murmured, "We are just getting started." That night, Josiah remained silent, offering me a towel instead. He pressed a gentle kiss to my forehead, as he always did, before retreating upstairs to sleep. Yet sleep eluded me, my body thrumming with a vitality I had long believed was lost to me. I experienced a profound sense of being revered, possessed, and desired. The following day, I anticipated the arrival of guilt, the sting of shame ready to confront me, yet neither appeared. Instead, I found myself reaching out to Luke, then to Hugo, yearning to experience that exhilarating rush once more, over and over again. Josiah continued to return them, occasionally one at a time, other times as a pair. Initially, I believed it was his attempt to salvage our marriage, but as time passed, I came to understand that it was not about preservation at all. It was about witnessing my descent into a darkness that would ultimately fracture us. I began to transform my wardrobe, slipping into heels even within the confines of my home. I adorned myself with silk robes, allowing the fabric to glide over my skin, embracing the freedom of being unencumbered beneath. In this metamorphosis, I unearthed a part of myself that had long been hidden away. One night, Josiah posed a question. "Do you still desire more?" I replied with a swift, unwavering yes. He then gazed at me, uttering the iciest words I had ever encountered. "Perhaps I should cease being your husband and take on the role of your manager." The room fell into an eerie silence. I chuckled initially, convinced he was jesting, yet his expression revealed the truth. He was utterly serious. From that instant, everything shifted, not merely within the confines of our bedroom, but throughout the fabric of our marriage. Josiah ceased to be my partner and began to regard me as a mere object. But that tale belongs to the next chapter. It all began with my phone vibrating at midnight. "Luke, are you free tomorrow?" "Hugo, we long for that enchanting smile of yours." I transitioned from being Josiah's wife to something entirely different, a woman caught in a web of desire, scheduled and exchanged between two formidable men like a cherished secret. Strangely enough, I found pleasure in it. No, I craved it. Josiah ceased to touch me altogether. The warmth of his embrace vanished, replaced by a chilling detachment. No more gentle forehead kisses, no tender "I love you" before he left for work. He became cold, clinical, almost mechanical, like a businessman overseeing a brand he had long since abandoned. He began to inform me of their arrivals. "They will be here at 7. Be prepared. They want to explore something new. Wear something red. Yes, they are bringing a third." Josiah did not blink. He said it like he was reading a grocery list. That night, I met Andre. He bigger, taller, even darker in skin and voice than the others. Andre was quiet, but his eyes spoke the loudest. He touched me like I was made of silk and sin. By the end of the night, I was sore, soaking, and speechless. I began losing track of who I was. Josiah was now taking payments, money, from strangers. Word had spread. My husband, my own husband, was selling me. He told me, "You wanted more. Now. They are lining up for you." I could not look at myself in the mirror anymore, not because I was ashamed, but because I no longer recognized the woman staring back. I was powerful, I was wanted, but I was also something else, something dark. One evening, Josiah asked me to sit. He poured us both wine, red, heavy, almost bitter. He looked at me and said, "You are the most alive you have ever been. Admit it." I nodded. He was not wrong, but there was a knot forming in my stomach, one I could no longer ignore. I asked, "Why are you doing this?" He smirked. "Because watching you transform turned me on, at first, but now I am seeing something even better. I am seeing power, I am seeing control, and if I can control you, I can control anyone." I dropped the wine. Glass shattered across the kitchen floor, red like blood splashing my feet. That was the night I realized something terrifying. I had not just betrayed my husband, I had awakened a monster inside him. From then on, it became darker. They started recording. Josiah set up lights, cameras, professional gear. He called it art. I called it something else. Porn. I screamed. I begged. I told him to stop. But Josiah only smiled and said, "You cannot stop now. You started this. You wanted more." And the worst part, somewhere inside me, part of me still enjoyed it. That duality, the pleasure and the horror, tore me in two. One day I would cry in the shower, curled up like a child. The next day, and I would ride Luke like my life depended on it. I stopped seeing my friends. I ignored my mother's calls. I even skipped my own niece's birthday party. I lived for the sessions. I waited for those messages, those knocks at the door, that raw, unfiltered pleasure. But everything changed the day I opened our guest room closet and found folders, labeled, tagged, organized, March Luke, April Hugo, May Andre, plus Malik, June, VIP submissions. Each folder had DVDs, USBs, and printed out contracts with my name on them. I was no longer a wife. I was now a business. I confronted Josiah. I screamed. I slapped him. He did not flinch. He looked me in the eye and said, "I built something out of your hunger. You said I was not enough. So I made you something too big for just me. Now everyone wants you." My body trembled, not from fear, but from realization I was not his wife anymore. I was his product. That night, I filled a bag, my hands trembling as I pulled the zipper closed. I attempted to summon a cab, but my phone had vanished. My purse was nowhere to be found, and my keys were lost to me. Josiah stood in the hallway, arms folded. He said, "You are not going anywhere. You belong here now." I ran to the guest room, locked the door. I sat on the bed and cried, but deep down, I knew this was not the end. It was only getting started. It had been weeks since the last night with the men Josiah brought into our lives. Since then, everything inside me had become hollow. No moans, no cries, not even whispers, just silence. A deep, bitter silence that stretched through the walls of our home. Like a disease, Josiah had become obsessed. He was no longer just my husband. He was now the twisted director of my days and nights. And I was the performance he watched on repeat. He began recording everything. Cameras in the bedroom, cameras in the bathroom, even tiny microphones in the kitchen. He told me it was for protection, that he wanted to keep everything under control. But I knew it was more. He wanted to own every breath I took. He started inviting more men, new faces. Older, younger, harder, rougher. One night, I counted 5. I could not even cry anymore. My body became numb. My soul had detached. I was no longer a woman. I was an exhibit, a thrill, a project. But deep down, something was brewing, quiet at first. Then louder, then burning. Rage, not just at Josiah, at myself. I had asked for more, and I got it, but the price, it was far too high. It was a Friday, cold gray skies. Josiah was out. He had gone to the gym, or at least that was what he claimed. I stood, alone in the living room, wearing nothing but a robe and silence. My reflection in the dark TV screen looked like a stranger, red-eyed, broken-lipped, fading. Then I saw it, his laptop, left open on the kitchen counter. He always carried it with him. Always, but not today. I walked toward it like I was walking toward a loaded gun, and I opened the folder named Pleasures. What I saw turned my stomach. Hundreds of videos, me, different men, different angles, different nights, and worse. They were uploaded, sold, subscribed to. My husband had turned me into adult content. I was not just a wife anymore. I was now property, and that was the last straw. I ran. Not just physically, I ran mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I ran to a neighbor I barely knew, a woman named Rita, who had once dropped a casserole at our door years ago. I told her everything, the men, the setup, the betrayal. She was silent at first. Then she hugged me, and dialed the police. Josiah was arrested too. Hours later at the gym, just as I suspected, the police found everything: footage, hard drives, bank transfers. He had made over $300,000 off my humiliation. I was led back into the house to gather my belongings. As I passed the bedroom, I recalled a time when I was revered like royalty, only to be cast aside like refuse. I moved through the kitchen, where the sounds of passion once resonated more powerfully than any melody. I stopped at the mirror in the hallway, the one where I used to fix my lipstick before every guest. I looked myself in the eyes. I was not ashamed. I was angry, violently angry, but underneath that rage, I felt freedom. Josiah is now facing charges: felony exploitation, unlawful surveillance, abuse, and a long list of crimes too painful to name. His lawyer tried to contact me. I refused. He does not deserve my voice anymore. As for me, I started therapy, real therapy. I signed away the house. I did not want the walls that knew too much. I rented a small studio apartment near the lake, where no one knows me. I changed my hair. I stopped wearing lace. I started writing again. Not stories, not poetry, but confessions, raw, bloody confessions. I told my truth online, anonymously at first, but the messages I got changed everything. Women from all over the country told me their truths. I was not alone, and that saved me. To all of you watching, reading, and living with your own hidden stories, let me say this: asking for more does not make you evil, but not knowing when to stop, that can destroy you. I was greedy, I was foolish, I wanted fire, and I got it, but in the process, I burned down everything. Now I am rebuilding, brick by painful brick, and this time, I will choose peace, not power, not pleasure, just peace.